Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 136 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we're coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services, where we simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We're highlighting another great organization this week and have Dina Murphy and Jean Ann Stewart with us today. Dina is the executive director and Jean Ann Stewart is the assistant director of the Gaston Literacy Council. And go back almost exactly 3 years, we had the Literacy Council on, but we love having organizations back to talk about what is going on, any changes that have happened. But again, Dina and Jean Ann, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get into specifics of the Literacy Council, one question we like to ask of our guests is just, tell us a little bit about yourself and anything that you'd like to share. So, Dina, you're closest, so start with you.
First, yeah. So I'm a Gaston County native, grew up in Belmont. About 5 years ago, bought a historic home in Gastonia and have been renovating it. Okay. So that's been a lot of fun and a lot of hard work and a lot of money. But it's been a fun project. I'm a lifelong educator.
Okay.
I taught for Gaston County schools and then went to teach at UNC Charlotte and then came back home to be the pre-K director with Gaston County Schools. I retired, and now I'm with the Literacy Council since July.
Okay, well, very good. Jean Ann, what about you? Anything you'd like to share?
I'm actually from Kansas City.
Okay.
I came to Gastonia in 1998, so I feel like I'm from here now.
That's long enough.
It can count.
That's long enough, yes.
Okay, appreciate it. And I have been doing nonprofit for 15 years in this area. Yeah, that's where my heart is. I think I'll always be in the nonprofit sector.
So real quick before we get into that, what brought you both to the Literacy Council?
For me, it was the opportunity to do something after retirement that was still related to a cause that I really care about, which is education and public education in particular. So it was just a perfect opportunity for me to be able to do that. Okay,
very good. Jean Ann, what brought you to the Literacy Council?
Well, I always say my life mission statement is to empower others to enjoy the life that they're given. So I'm always looking for opportunity to do that. I've been in Charlotte doing that for quite a while, but living here and that commute said, let's stop doing that right away. So when I heard about the opportunity at Gaston Literacy Council, it was a no-brainer for me. Yeah.
Very good. All right. So again, I appreciate you sharing that little bit of background there. So Dina, I'll go back to you. There may be some listeners out there who are not familiar with the Literacy Council. I'm very, very fortunate to be involved in some organizations. I'm also a member of First Methodist Church.
Yeah.
So I'm just personally familiar with the Literacy Council. But again, we may have some listeners who aren't. So maybe just to start with, just give us a little, what is it? What's the mission? And then we'll kind of maybe get into a few more specifics.
Yeah. So the Literacy Council was really formed in 1964. And so there's a long history here. Our mission is, transforming lives through literacy. So we offer several different programs. One is an adult literacy component where we teach English as a second language classes, and boy, have our numbers really increased just over the past year, really, in that particular realm. We also offer adult basic education for folks who maybe didn't complete high school and they want to get their GED. We also, and Jean Ann is an example, this morning you invited us to your company meeting for your United Way kickoff, and Gary came with us and spoke. Jean Ann is actually Gary's tutor, so we also have adults who get individual tutoring who maybe didn't learn to read and write as they were coming up in school. We also have a real exciting program for children called Reading Soulmates.
Okay.
That's for second graders who are a little behind, a little below their grade level in reading, and so they're paired one-on-one with a volunteer who goes into the school and works with them. And we really like to think of that as a mentoring program with a literacy focus, because that relationship that they build with those children is just as important as their reading practice. And we also, the other thing that we do, we do help people who want to gain citizenship.
Okay.
We help them prepare for the test, which is really hard, by the way. Not sure that I could pass the test, but that is a very moving thing, to be able to go to a ceremony and watch somebody who was born in another country and come here and works really hard to gain their U.S. citizenship. We were there about 2 weeks ago and had one of our students take that oath. There were 68 candidates from 30 different countries. It was
That's something
amazing.
else, y'all, that I forgot to mention when y'all had to leave our meeting this morning was we did recognize a coworker who's about to do that.
Oh, so neat.
Yeah, and frankly, it's kind of sad. I didn't even know it, but when our HR director, that was one of his things he talked about when during his portion of the meeting. So anyway, I appreciate that. So, all right, you jumped into a lot of initiatives there, which is great. So Jean Ann, she specifically mentioned the tutoring and his testimony. You know, if you're not, listeners out there, and we've had the United Way on a couple times, if you're not familiar with some of the still the biggest way the United Way gets funded here locally, it's individuals, but it's still through company campaigns. And something that they do that's really good, like a company like ours kicks off our campaign, which we officially did today, but it doesn't really ramp up. It'll take a few weeks for it to really ramp up. We typically will have somebody like Gary or Gaston Literacy Council come, and so we can see the impact, right? Specific impact. And it was, I'll just say it was impactful. Almost one of those things you can't describe it. You have to see it.
He took you to church, didn't he?
Yeah. You know what? And for us, that's okay. That's one thing I like about owning our company. You know, we can do that.
Yes.
And we're absolutely okay with that. That's one reason we still pray and say the Pledge of Allegiance and those things at the beginning of our meetings. So, but Jean Ann, maybe can you kind of go into maybe some specifics of that, the tutoring and maybe a success. Well, maybe describe Gary, because I would consider he's a success story, right? Because I know our listeners like to hear very specific. If there's any specific stories or anecdotes that you can share about a success from the Literacy Council.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary is most definitely a success story, and he is a story.
Yeah.
If you have opportunity to meet him or see him, you should just do it.
He wasn't enthusiastic at all.
He's very dull. No, he's fantastic. Gary is one of several adult students that we do tutor one-on-one.
Okay.
He never learned to read through any of his education and his 30 years of working for the city. Upon retirement, he went to a doctor's appointment, and he said he could not read to fill out a form. They were able to refer him to Gaston Literacy Council, which we're grateful for. And he was brave enough to ask for help, because that's difficult to do.
Sure.
You know, when you're over 60, to say, I don't know how to read.
Wow.
That takes a lot of bravery to be able to admit that. So he did. And when I got there to work with Gary, he was doing word lists, reading specific like sight words from a list is where he started. Now we read stories, and he, as you might imagine, ad-libs a little bit of humor into the story, which is great, because not only is he catching those sight words, but he's actually getting the comprehension and really learning to love to read and loving literacy like we do. So it's very rewarding to work with them. You can't really think of it as work, I don't think, because you get to do it, and I always just smile when he reads, because it's beautiful that he's getting that.
Is it fair to say, and I'm going to throw myself in this category, that it's the charmed life, for lack of a better, that I've lived, and access to education I had early on. I mean, I probably just take that for granted, right? That trying to comprehend, not being able to read, and I'm sure there's different levels of that too, right? Different.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just that you can't read anything, or I'm sure there's people that in that situation or what they've gathered over their lifetime. But I can imagine. I'm not sure I can imagine how difficult going about day-to-day life would be without that skill.
Yeah.
I mean, so what brings? Is that an example of what brings most people? Let's stick with adults. All right. Mm-hmm. What brings most students or people to you guys, especially say for the adults time? How do you, is it situations like that where a doctor's office refers them, or is that how most not, I don't mean just a doctor's office, but it's referrals, or they hear about you? How do most people get to you?
Yeah, I think it is mostly through word of mouth and referrals. We had a couple stop by yesterday, and somebody recommended to them, because they don't read or write, 69 and 64 years old, husband and wife, and somebody told them about us, and they came in and said, we want help. And so we're right now recruiting volunteers. So anybody out there listening, if you want to be a one-on-one tutor for an adult, we would love to have you, because they heard about us and they came. They've actually come twice because we haven't found a tutor yet. And so they are really advocating for themselves. And I think what Jean Ann said, that really is the important thing to remember. Those adults, we have several of them. Mm-hmm. They're all older adults. They've somehow managed to adapt to living in a society where they're not literate. And Gary said to me one time, one of the first times I met him, he said, growing up, people thought I was dumb. And he said, because I couldn't read. And he said, I would try to cover that up. And I said, well, Gary, you know what? Look at what you have done. You worked for the city of Gastonia for 30 years, and you adapted to the world. You're actually very smart to be able to do that, because,
that's quite an accomplishment.
It really is. And so, it is mostly referrals and word of mouth for that particular part of our programs.
All right. So you mentioned the English as a second language, and how, I'm paraphrasing exactly what you said, but how that has just grown, or kind of, is that, well, I'll let you kind of explain what's your take on that, and why is that the case, and maybe talk about that a little bit. Yeah,
Jean Ann, you talk about that, because you deal with those numbers every single day.
I do. We are growing exponentially in that area. We have a lot of refugees who are ending up in Gastonia. And they need help. We have individuals who were dentists, who were microbiologists, people who had very successful careers in their country, who are coming here unable to even get employment because there is the language barrier.
Okay.
So we are working steadily at getting them to a space that they can function here, teaching them what to say to their children's teachers, what do sick notes look like, how to explain to a doctor what is wrong. These are the things that they are unable to do because of the language barrier. And it's growing a lot. We have over 220 people that we have touched since July 1st. So they're coming fast.
Since July 1st.
Yes.
Yeah.
So today is September 18th?
Yes.
Yeah.
2.5 months?
Yes.
Did I do that math right?
Yep.
And we have a waiting list. Our list for testing to determine what level our students is November. Yeah. So, when we think about what we need more. We need to secure funding so that we have instructors, whether they're volunteer or paid part-time, so that we don't have a waiting list, so that we can eliminate. And because this is Gaston's Great, I want to mention something great that one of our Haitian refugees said through an interpreter to us, and that was, why are all of these people coming to Gaston County? How are they finding Gastonia? Because they don't come directly here. They're coming here usually from some other place. Right. And what the individual said is that it's word of mouth, that they will tell their friends and family, hey, come to Gastonia because they're welcoming here. They've been nice to us here. They've been supportive of us here. And that's not just the Literacy Council. That's our community
in general.
That is our community in general. And they are finding work. Granted, it's usually in the service or food industry or something like that. But they're finding opportunity here, which says a lot about Gaston County.
So, all right, you mentioned, again, I'm going to paraphrase from my short memory. You're trying to get, say, a refugee or somebody has English as a second language to get to where they're being able to function, for lack of a better term, and this might not be a fair question, but something I think something would come to somebody's mind, a question would be, how long does that take? How long? And I realize that there's going to be, everybody's showing up probably at a different level of being able to communicate, right? So say somebody really can speak no English and they show up, what, if you're able to work with them consistently, what kind of time frame is it? Is that 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? Because I'm told that's something I would be totally ignorant of personally.
Right. So it's a difficult question to answer.
Okay. Well, that's why I asked.
Right. Sure, of course. So it's not really a time frame. We don't put a time frame on it. There's not a time frame on their class. It's open enrollment.
Right.
They continue until they test to go to a different level.
Okay.
Now, how fast it's going to happen is going to be a lot on the individual. Because if they leave us and don't speak any English till they come back, it's going to be a very long road.
Gotcha.
If they start to listen to podcasts in English, if they start listening to English radio, if they watch English TV, if they're reading English to their student or to their kids, if they're trying to speak some English at home, then it can happen very quickly. So I have seen, a measurable difference very quickly because the person is really immersing themselves. And I have seen some that have been with us for quite a long time and have not seen as much. But that's because when they leave, and like anything else, if you don't practice, you're not going to master it, right?
It's much harder to learn a second language as an adult.
Oh, I'm sure.
Their children are in school and they're picking it up much more quickly.
Yeah. Do you find, that was a question that came to mind, do you find often that within the families, the children are able to do a majority of the communication, and sometimes when the adults are not able to?
Yeah, many times we'll have a child come with the parent to ask for a class or ask for, help. So, yeah, that's not unusual at all.
How many, so I think I heard the number 220 since July 1st for that particular initiative. Mm-hmm. What about in general? How many people are y'all touching in a year's time? Do you know that?
Gosh.
Or is that really?
Well, if we continue as we are for the English as a second language, I feel confident we'll be over 400 plus this year. We have over 250 second graders that we're touching. Mm-hmm. And then our adult basic education, we probably have 10 to 25 right now. So it's
a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's a connection with Gaston County Schools. Is that how you were getting in touch with the second graders, or is there some other way?
Yes. Okay. It's with Gaston County Schools. The teachers nominate those children. Okay. And then we assign a volunteer. And we're looking for volunteers. We still need a few more Reading Soulmate volunteers too.
3 years ago, the Soulmates program, we talked a lot about that because Annie Anthony was here, and she was I guess one of the volunteers or over that program.
She's one of the coordinators.
Yeah. And so we spoke a lot about that. So it's nice to hear that that's still going. Of course, that was an interesting time period 3 years ago because we were a year or so into COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
Didn't I say we weren't going to say that word anymore?
I know. It's a bad word. Bad word.
So it's not, but my point where I was going, it's nice to hear that feels like, from talking to you, a lot of recovery has occurred from that. Because at the time, they couldn't talk to students and in person. I mean, it was just, that was just a weird time for everyone, especially nonprofits, frankly. I mean, it seemed like it impacted some of those organizations much more than others. So, you've mentioned a couple things, Dina, but what are your greatest needs? Obviously, remember the point of this is to bring awareness to your organization, but it's also give you guys an opportunity. There might be a listener out there who's not familiar or know somebody who's Reading Soulmates is right down their alley to volunteer.
For sure.
But what kind of needs do y'all currently have, or what's the biggest few needs that you have?
So we definitely could use some more volunteers. Okay. We have a fundraiser coming up November the 7th. It's a Meet the Author event, or it's called An Evening with Claire Jimenez, and she's the author of the book What Happened to Ruthie Ramirez. She was born in Puerto Rico, but also raised in Brooklyn, and so novel has won a lot of awards, and that's going to be a big fundraiser, we hope, for us. It's at 6:30 on November the 7th at the Gaston Country Club.
Okay.
And you can purchase tickets either by going to our Facebook page and following us and seeing the link there, or on our website. So really having the volunteers, referring people that you may know that could use our assistance in learning English or learning to improve their reading and writing, and really the funding. I mean, we're all funded through grants, through individual and business contributions, and fundraisers that we have. That's it. That's how we can offer what we offer. So just like every nonprofit, we're all competing for that support from the community.
So, Gina, anything would you add to that, or did she cover kind of the current needs or anything you're specifically involved with that she didn't cover?
She did a great job.
Okay.
I would add the volunteers to work with our adults.
Okay.
You're really offering them freedom, because I worked with one person who said that they drove to Atlanta and for the first time didn't feel panicked, because they knew when they were seeing Atlanta this many miles, it's almost time for me to go. If you can imagine driving without even being able to read the road signs, that's very difficult. And another example is I met with someone recently, and he said, speaking about his wife, I need her to learn to read, because when I die, she's not going to know if someone's taking advantage of her. So,
all right, then.
pulling at the heartstrings.
Well,
but
again, things you take for granted.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
It really is rewarding to work. I mean, I've been in education all my life. It really is rewarding to work for an agency where you really are transforming a person's life, whether it's a child or an adult. It has an effect on the economy. It has an effect on just our citizenry and being able to, fully participate and function in our community. I mean, there's nothing that isn't touched by literacy if you think about it. Your health. Yesterday I spoke at a church in Belmont, and I put a little label on the table in Vietnamese, and it was a medicine label. And I put some Tic Tacs on the table and said, "Those are your pills." And I said, "Who can read this medicine label?" And they're like, "No, we can't." And I said, "Well, trust me, it's something about medicine. Will you take that medicine?" And they're like, "No, we won't take that medicine. We don't know what it's for." Well, that is the life and that is an experience that some of our students have all the time with all kinds of things. Just being able to tell the doctor what's wrong is a barrier for them sometimes. So it touches everything.
This might not be a fair question that just popped into my head. How has the world we live in now with phones and technology, and has that made these type of things easier or harder, or less people coming to you because I think they can just use their phones to translate things? I'm just curious, because I don't use any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm too old school, I guess. I mean, like this morning, we had all these QR codes at our kind of meeting, and guess what? I didn't have my phone. On purpose.
Right.
So I kind of missed out. I had to do it afterwards, which is funny, right? I'm leaving the meeting today, and I didn't have my phone to do some of the things I needed to do. So I'm just curious. I mean, is that something y'all see or deal with, or has technology helped y'all more easily educate or inform others?
So Google Translate is our friend.
Okay. Yeah.
It definitely
I would
is
assume
our friend.
that, but I didn't want
Yes.
to. I've learned not to make assumptions.
No, it has not, I don't think, prevented people from coming to us, because our numbers are higher right now than they have ever been before.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it is blocking our numbers, then I can't imagine what would happen if it wasn't. But it is helpful. It is helpful to use the Google Translate. It is not perfection.
Oh, sure.
I was getting someone set up for testing recently, and she was using Google Translate. And what she said to me was, "Can I take this on Bachelorette Avenue?" And I thought, I don't think that's what she's saying to me. I don't think that's what she wants at all. So it's definitely not perfection. And they, our students know that they can't depend on that phone to translate properly for what they need. But it is helpful, of course. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, technology and AI, can only take us so far, right? I mean,
sure.
I'm sure we're being listened to right now and recorded. And
well, the technology does help in the instruction. I mean, when you think about it, like we just wrote a grant recently to replace our old smart boards with some LED, some TV things.
LED probably.
Some big TV things.
I mean, listen, I remember when smart boards were the thing, brand new thing. Holy moly.
Yeah, they don't last forever. They're very expensive.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But, that's being able to visually represent something to a student is really, really important. It's harder to listen to a foreign language than it is to read a foreign language. So they need all of those stimuli to help them learn. And one thing that we don't do right now that I think would be great to start if we could have some support for it is our students come to class and they follow the curriculum and they learn, but they don't get a lot of practice with us in just general conversation. So having like a coffee hour where, they could come and just converse with other people. It's really good practice for them. And so, hopefully we can initiate some new things like that the community can be a part of as well.
All right. So before we shift gears briefly, is there anything that I haven't asked that I should have asked? I mean, but the very last thing I'd like to let you guys do is share where listeners can go to learn more information and all that. But so we'll make sure that gets out. But is there anything I haven't asked that I should have asked? Since I'm such a professional interviewer.
I mean, clearly, you've got this down pat.
Well prepared, yes. I can't think of anything. I think you've been very generous to let us share our mission and our programs.
All right, so something we make our listeners endure, our guests endure, is these Gaston County related questions. And Dina, since you're a lifetime Gaston County resident, that's perfect. Jeananne, you've been here long enough. To be able to answer these questions. And so this is going to be this is going to be the Kansas version of Gaston County questions.
Okay.
Because Jeananne is from Kansas, and I come up with such a creative title for this round of questions every week. So Dina, we're going to start with you.
All right.
This is what your family, everyone at Gaston Literacy Council, all your former co-workers with pre-K, which is, assuming, is that where you met Lisa Fox? Working in pre-K? Yeah, I might.
Known Lisa a long time.
I might come back to that. But
yeah.
We'll wait. So what is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
I like butter pecan.
Oh, wow. It's my dad's favorite.
Yeah, and I like the grape, too.
Oh. You just named my dad and my mother's favorite flavors at
Tony's. Great
Tony's.
minds think alike.
We're gonna just shut the podcast down there.
We're done.
Jeananne, have you ever been to Tony's?
I have.
I would hope so.
I have.
And you?
I would say probably cookies and cream.
Okay, cookies and cream. That's a relatively popular answer. Jeananne, Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Uh-oh.
I don't like soda. But my son loves Cheerwine.
Okay.
Can that count?
So you don't like it or don't drink it, but it's okay for your kids to drink the sugar-filled stuff.
Well, he did it against mother's advice.
Well, I have 3 children.
I don't know if you're aware they do these things. Against mother's advice.
I have 3 children, so I'm fully aware. Please listen to your mother, not your father. That's always been my plan.
Right.
Dina, what about you?
All right, so I don't drink soda anymore. Okay. Every once in a while, a Coke Zero, but you didn't ask that. So, but when I was in college in Chapel Hill, you couldn't get Sundrop there, and so I would buy cases of Sundrop and take it to Chapel Hill. Yeah, so I had a Sundrop addiction back in the day.
I heard Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
Favorite local restaurant, Dina? We'll come back to the Chapel Hill thing in a minute as well.
Okay, so I love Webb.
Webb's good, yeah.
I love String Bean in Belmont. You know what I tried recently, though, that I really liked? It's called Curry, and it's an Indian restaurant there where the movie theater is.
Okay.
My daughter said, let's go, and I tried it, and I really, really liked it.
Oh, good.
So that's someplace new to try. It's really good.
Jeananne, can you Do less than 3?
I can. I can.
Sorry.
If I'm choosing one,
Yes.
it would be string bean as
Okay.
well.
String
I was
bean's
just there
great.
Saturday.
Very
If I
good.
want to stay closer, I do Tasties.
Tasties.
You don't know Tasties?
I don't think I do.
Oh,
do I
you
know
need
that?
to check it out. It's on New Hope, where the original Gia used to be.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I have been there. I'm just a driver and the roadie. I don't keep up with any of that. All right. I'm afraid I know the answer to one of these for one of the guests here, but it's a question that we ask every week. And I'll start with you, Jean Ann.
Okay.
And there are other acceptable answers. Depends
All right.
since you're maybe not from here, but the question is UNC, Duke, or NC State?
There's only one acceptable answer.
Again, this is my leader. So she's going to say the only acceptable answer.
I'm afraid I already know that one.
You already know. But I have to say, I have to stay loyal to the Kansas State Wildcats.
Okay, so you're a Kansas State person.
Yes.
That's good. That's better than
Jayhawks.
the Jayhawks,
Yeah,
rock, chalk,
yeah.
whatever that
Right. I would agree with that.
whatever that phrase is. So, Dina, how would you answer that question?
Tar Heel all the way. All the way.
Well, I'm married to Tar Heel, so I can't say much. But our youngest just started a few weeks ago at NC State. So,
Oh, nice.
um,
They just got whooped badly by Tennessee. We won't talk about that, though.
wow, the Tar Heel talking about the Volunteers.
I know, right? In football.
Yeah, wow,
What is happening?
Listen, we're shameless.
man. Maybe we can do like we can dub voiceovers anytime Dina speaks.
Well, I'm also a Packers fan, so I don't fit into the
boy.
Carolina Panther nation
You mind me? I'm
either.
just curious. How did that happen? If you're
My
from
husband-
Gaston County, okay.
Yeah, my husband, my brother lives in Green Bay.
Oh wow. Okay.
And he and his family are Panther fans, so they catch
Okay.
heck all the time.
That makes
But my
perfect sense,
husband
yeah.
lived in Milwaukee for a while
Okay.
and
All right,
became
that
a
makes
Packers
sense.
fan, and they're a great local neighborhood team, so I love them.
All right. Stick with you, Dina. What is something very few people know about you?
Oh gosh. I'm pretty much an open book. There's not a whole lot that people don't know about me.
That's not an acceptable answer.
I know. Probably that I'm really more introverted than people think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Is that acceptable? Oh yeah, that's true. Jean Ann, you got an open door here to come up with something better.
Something better.
It's really dragging on me.
I don't know. I would say probably a lot of people don't realize I was raised very conservatively, which led to I do not like movies. I was not allowed to watch them, and now I think that is a real commitment of time that I'm not giving you.
Now that to me that is super conservative when you weren't
Yeah.
allowed to watch movies. Huh. That's
That's
the
a
first
whole different
136
podcast.
episodes. That's the first. That's the first.
There you go.
Wow. I mean, so, sometimes when people come on the second time, one of my questions, "What's your favorite movie?" That would have been
Oh, don't ask me that.
so
That's
because I don't want to
unfair.
ask the same. I don't want to ask the same questions over and over. Jean Ann, what about a book or article or another podcast or something you might recommend to our listeners?
Well, my son and I kind of have a tradition of reading the same thing to give us
Okay.
something to chat about. And
That's
one
good.
of our favorites is by C.J. Box, the Joe Pickens series. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
He's a game warden, and people seem to. I said Pickens, and it's Pickett. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But people seem to die when he's around, and it's a lot about environmental issues more so than
He's
the
a gangster?
person.
I'm kidding.
No, but it's a very fun series. It's a very fun series.
All right, cool.
Yeah, check it
I'm
out.
always looking for something to read. I'm always reading something. Dina, how would you answer that?
Another really hard question because there's so many favorites that I love.
We'll allow you multiple answers on this
Okay,
one
okay.
without
So-
any chastising.
So right now I'm reading Those We Thought We Knew by David Joy. He's a North Carolina author. He spoke recently at the Belmont Bookshop, and really interesting story. It's based in Sylva, North Carolina, so it has a lot of...
I love Sylva. My son was in Western Carolina.
Oh, yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time there.
Love it. I'm also reading The Devil at His Elbow, which is the story about Alec Murdaugh.
Ooh, wow.
I know. I was really fascinated by that trial, and just that family history in that small town is amazing. But I also recently read The Women by Kristen Hanna. It's about nurses in Vietnam. Fabulous story. Okay. Really good story. So, I mean, I have so many books that I love.
Well, it's appropriate that you both had books there with that, since you work with the Literacy Council. I'm glad you didn't say, "Well, I don't read much."
I know, right?
Oh no.
Sorry, that would have been ironic. So, listen, I appreciate you indulging us on those, kind of personal and Gaston County related questions. So, just a few more questions, and we'll wrap up this episode. So, Jeanette, I'll let you take this one first. And, remembering this is a podcast about Gaston County, and remembering that there are, good things happening around, right? Don't pay attention to the news and the world. It's what's happening here locally is what I think it tells really what's going on in the world. But besides the Literacy Council, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
I think it's the people. Honestly, you can sometimes get that kind of small town feel, but we have the not small town luxuries if wanted. And just like Dina did mention earlier, that people who are needing a safe place and help are seeing Gaston County as a place to come. And so for me, as a Gaston County resident, that makes me proud that we are welcoming and receiving these individuals.
Yeah.
That's good. Great answer.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Jean Ann just said. And I also agree that it's the people and a lot of us are lifelong residents. You are too. Yeah, and there's, I've never wanted to live anyplace else. When I went away to college, much as I love Chapel Hill, I wanted to come back home and I wanted to serve in my public schools, and I wanted to serve in this community. And it's because there are great people. We've seen a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of increased opportunities here. But it's a great place to make home, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I've been fortunate to travel a lot, especially over the United States. And I've never gone anywhere where I really felt it's nice to visit, but I don't think I want to stay here. Gaston County is great. I was in Raleigh for a few years. Which is a better location than. So you understand why. I don't normally have my NC State cup. I normally will turn it for that question to make everybody see. Here's the correct answer.
Correct answer.
But I appreciate that. So, last question. And I'll let you go first on this one, Dina. Something I like to ask for our listeners. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I would say to that young Dina, just be true to yourself. You were raised well, and you didn't realize all the things that you had available to you when you were 20 years old. And you worried too much about what other people thought, and I would relieve myself of that.
Often after that question, we there's occasionally, I shouldn't say often, but a little bit of discussion about perspective. And boy, it would be nice to be able to have my 54-year-old perspective when I was 20. Yeah. But I'm afraid it takes just experience and time, right?
And making mistakes.
Yeah.
You learn
and realizing those mistakes that seemed such a big deal at 20 weren't really a big deal.
Right. Right. For sure.
Yeah. Jeanette, how would you answer that?
I would say slow down. Slow down. It's not a race, It's like
it's a journey, right?
Yeah. And enjoy it, right? Don't try it. I feel like sometimes we're wishing life away. I wish I was 18 so I could do this. I wish I was 21 so I could do this. Now really, I wish I was a kid so I could nap and not worry about bills. So just slow down. Slow down and enjoy it.
Yeah, at some point you quit.
Each phase.
Yeah, at some point you quit doing the wait until I'm older thing, right? Yeah, that quits soon. So again, I appreciate those those additional questions. And so again, remember the main point here is to bring awareness to your organization. There might be a listener out there who has a family member, a friend, or someone who might need your services, or they may be, got inspired to get involved or something. So where can listeners go to find out more information, learn about volunteer opportunities, or just anything and everything that you guys can share?
All right. They can knock on our door at 116 Dr. Martin Luther King Way, and we can help them face-to-face. They can go on our website at gastonliteracy.org. They can follow us on Facebook. We're really trying to increase our social media traffic, and so they can get lots of information about us there. You can call us at 704-868-4815. I had to look at Gina and, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget the number. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
funny.
what else?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Any
That's
other
it.
social media besides Facebook, or just Facebook?
Well, we're really,
That's fine. I'm just curious.
we're really on, we do have an Instagram.
We have Instagram.
As far as you know.
But I really have been on the Facebook more than the Instagram. But yeah.
Yeah. Facebook probably has more of our demographic than
Yeah.
younger. Maybe
Yes.
Instagram might be a little younger consistently than.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes, you
She is one of our local experts on social media.
There's all the Snapchat and TikTok. I don't know a lot
No,
about
we're
all
not
that,
doing all
so.
that now.
She's a TikTok expert, aren't you?
No.
Yes, she is. You still have your own YouTube channel that you and Kaylee do? Okay. She has her own YouTube channel. Leave it at that. All right. So, any last words before we close this? Anything else you'd like to share, or
Just
before
thank
I start
you.
giving Lisa Fox a hard time?
I know, let's do that. Just thank you for having us. I mean, really, the most important thing we can do is build awareness in the community of
Absolutely.
what our needs are so that we can support those that need us.
All right. Gina, any last words? You get the final word
That's a lot of
over Dina
pressure.
for a
That's lot of
change.
pressure. Yeah, no, I agree. Just thank you so much for having us. And I realize there are so many people who don't know what Gaston Literacy Council does.
Sure.
When I say that's where I work, what is that? So thank you for giving us.
Well, that's another reason we
what it
started
is.
this podcast. I'm so involved in the community and very fortunate to be involved. So that's another thing I can take for granted is that, well, you mean, well, of course everybody knows about the Literacy Council or the Rotary Club or United Way, but that's just not the case.
Right.
Something else that we didn't realize when we started this is now we have a place where if somebody wants to know about an organization, we've got 136 episodes of people talking about community stuff.
Yeah.
And so almost like a little clearinghouse
Yeah.
to learn about the different organizations in our county. But also, I'm so involved in so many things. I do know the work that you guys do, and I've seen firsthand, what an impact it does make. So we appreciate that greatly. And it takes people like you to do that work, right? It doesn't just happen, right? You have to have volunteers, you have to have a mission, and you have to have people who are willing to get the boots on the ground and do the work. Because sometimes it's not easy.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
that's that can be some difficult stuff. So before I go to I'd always do a book recommendation, a quote or thought for the week. But before I do that, I am going to take an opportunity to remind a good friend of mine and Dina's that, gosh, somewhere in the time frame of what year would this have been? Somewhere 1984 to 1986 time frame. She completely got Rin Tin Tin and Ricky Tikki Tavi confused. And the person in question knows who she is. We may have mentioned her name earlier. And so I've asked Dina next time she sees her to bring that up and see. I would be interested in her response because I know what actually happened.
I can't wait to ask her.
Rin Tin Tin is not Ricky Tikki Tavi. So I'll just leave that there. And I hope I don't get a knock on my door in the middle of the night over this one. But
This is good stuff, Stephen.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get to her.
So anyway, I'm going to finish. And I was sometimes I'm very intentional about the book recommendations I make in my quote, and I really was this week. But I read a book many years ago by Mortimer Adler called How to Read a Book. And I remember somebody recommended, I was like, what? But it actually was very informational, very informing to me about how to actually not just, sometimes I think I find myself reading just to check off a box, or somebody recommend I'm going to read this so I can say I read it. But there's so much you can learn. Sometimes I read stuff twice or 3 times to get it. But and that's an old version. And there's actually a newer version that I have not read by a lady named Monica Wood that was recommended to me. It's a much newer. It's not the same book, but it's just a newer model for how to read a book. And again, I would just recommend you checking those out. And my quote is from Dr. Seuss, and I think I've said before, even on this podcast, but I'll say it again because that's how I am. You can learn everything you need to learn in life from The Godfather, Yoda, and Dr. Seuss. Maybe throwing the Bible in there to be fair, but I think that's a given in my life. But Dr. Seuss said, the more you read, the more places the more things you will know, the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. So take that for what it's worth. Reading is important, and the more people that we can have in our community who are able to communicate in the work and following the work that the Literacy Council does, I think we will be better. So, To our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We are always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you find podcast. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. Thanks again to Dina and Jean Ann for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson and Naomi Hunt from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.